going to begin with an instrumental prelude, Amazing Grace, a traditional spiritual, directed by Miss Hillary Brown. And our musicians this morning, Isabella Morel and Georgia Loomis. Good morning, everyone. It seems that we bring the cold weather every year to this event. This actually reminds me of our first year doing this 2 years ago. So I'm Dr. Tucci, and I work with the Ridgefield Public Schools as the 612 Humanities Supervisor. And I work alongside our 8th grade teachers, the Witness Stones Project, and also the Ridgefield Historical Society. And our partnership together brings history alive here to our town and to our students to practice the skills of inquiry and to be future historians. During our program today, we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. We will have opening remarks from Dr. Susie De Silva, our Superintendent of Schools, Liz Lightfoot from the Witness Stones Project, and Stephen Barkus, the Executive Director here at the Ridgefield Historical Society. After that, we will have time together to honor Anne, who is a formerly enslaved person from Ridgefield attached to the David Scott estate. The students will then present with us and share their remarks of what they learned as part of this project, and we will continue on to have some musical interludes throughout before we unveil the stone that honors Anne today. Can I please have Anna Carboni and Supriti Sarvana come up to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to invite Dr. Susie De Silva, our Superintendent of Schools, to give a few opening remarks.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning and welcome. It's ironic that I have sunglasses on and yet I'm freezing and wanted to take our little young lady's gloves right off of her hands and put them on mine. And you're right, Dr. Tucci, this is our third year, and it's always the coldest day being here, yet all of you are here with us for this important work. And really, Dr. Tucci, when she joined us in Ridgefield just about 3 years ago, she came to me and said, there's something that I think is really important and valuable for our community to be a part of, but it comes with some risks, right? And that sometimes is looking at our past and understanding that it's not all good. And there's lots of lessons that we can learn from it. So I really want to give Annie the most amount of credit here because she took a risk, brought the Witness Stone Project to our community, to our students, to our teams, and we're very, very fortunate to have her. And now really it is about the Witness Stone Project and the collaboration with our teachers, and I know our students are watching over at both East Ridge and Scotts Ridge, and the importance and value of understanding our history and understanding how that history influences the steps that we take today or the actions that we take today. So I'll turn it over back to Dr. Tucci, and thank you all for coming and being a part of this because it really is such a valuable part of our community, our curriculum, and certainly to our students, those that are here and those that are back at school.
I'd like to introduce Liz Lightfoot to join us from the Witness Stones Project to share with us about the mission of the project and the work that is being done.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say a couple of thank yous before I start. And I look at the students here, and first of all, I want to thank you and you students back at school for doing this work. It's not easy. And sometimes it's frustrating because you can't answer all the questions, but it's really important. I want to thank your teachers who are amazing. It's been so fun to get to know you over the past couple of years. I want to thank the Historical Society. You've been a remarkable partner, wonderful research. I want to thank the administrators and the board of the Ridgefield Public Schools. Your investment in this past is really an investment in the future, I think. And so I love to see students really engage in this way. So the Witness Stones Project was founded in 2017 with a mission to restore the history and honor the humanity of the enslaved individuals who helped build our communities. I don't know about those of you, particularly over there. Did any of you learn that there was slavery in New England? I did not, but I'm older than a lot of you. But in any event, it was news to a lot of us. And I was at a school where we did the project, and Dennis Colleton, its founder, saw that I loved doing this research and invited me to join, and it's been a real honor. So on behalf of Dennis and also of Pat Wilson-Phineas, our board chair and executive director, we just want to thank you for telling this story of Anne, who was the fifth and we think final person who was enslaved here. Who knows? We may find more. And to that end, I just want to say there are these unanswered questions, but please don't stop looking. As you drive around town, you see something, and you wonder, and that's how we lead. We find our way to more answers. And I just wanted to share a quick passage from this magazine. This is the Atlantic magazine, and you notice the cover looks like one of the markers that is installed here. It's a Stolperstein. And these markers were installed in Germany to commemorate people who lost their lives during the Holocaust. And an author, one of my favorite authors and a poet, Clint Smith, went to Germany to see what America can learn about atonement. He wrote a 20-page article. I'm obviously not going to read it all, but I just wanted to get to the last two paragraphs. He was talking about how some in the United States have done work to remember those who were impacted by slavery. And he mentioned these three organizations. One was run by Brian Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative. Some of you may know about him. If you don't, look him up. He's amazing. And he has the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. Really, really a remarkable place. Another is in Camden, New Jersey. People are commemorating an area where people were sold into slavery in New Jersey. And then the third organization he mentioned was Witness Stones, which he said was founded by educators working with students and teachers to restore the history and honor the humanity of the enslaved individuals who helped build our communities. And so that was really exciting to be mentioned there. But I think more to the point, and I say this because of the holes in these stories, the questions we haven't been able to answer. He says, none of these projects, whether in the US or Germany, can ever be commensurate with the history they are tasked with remembering. It is impossible for any memorial to slavery to capture its full horror, or for any memorial to the Holocaust to express the full humanity of the victims. No stone in the ground can make up for a life. No museum can bring back millions of people. It cannot be done, and yet we must try to honor those lives and to account for this history as best we can. It is the very act of attempting to remember that becomes the most powerful memorial of all. And so I thank you all for attempting to remember, and keep attempting. Thanks so much.
I'd like to invite Stephen Barkas, the Executive Director here at the Richfield Historical Society.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us today here at our headquarters at the David Scott House as we honor Anne, this lady who was denied her basic rights, her dignity, and for so long her identity. We're dedicated to preserving and sharing the entire history of Richfield, Connecticut, from the indigenous people who lived here thousands of years ago all the way up to the present day. And we have a collection of over 10,000 artifacts related to Richfield's history that are stored in a climate-controlled vault below the Scott House here. And this project really embodies our dedication to bringing history to life. And we thank Dr. De Silva, Dr. Tucci, Betsy Reed, Dennis Culleton, Liz Lightfoot, and of course the talented educators and students who worked on this great project this year. So Anne lived in this house, which was built in 1714, and as we heard, she was one of at least 5 enslaved people owned by David Scott. And we know so little about her story, her life, her hopes, her hardships. But all this has remained so hidden and overshadowed by this system of slavery that treated her as property rather than as a person. So in this sense today with our gathering, we're here to restore some measure of dignity by acknowledging and remembering her as a human being who once lived, worked, and persevered right here in this home. As we place this stone today, we honor Anne and her place in Richfield's history, not as someone who was just property, but as a woman with dignity. This stone stands as a testament to her life and a lasting reminder to all of us that every person's story is worth remembering. Thank you so much, and please join us inside after the ceremony for refreshments.
So now we will move into the part of our program where we introduce the project by our teachers and students and honor Anne. So I'd like to invite up our 8th grade teachers, Mr. Tom Broderick, Mr. Mike Hogasian, Ms. Kara Kowalczyk, and Ms. Anna Santorelli.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Santorelli, and I teach 8th grade over at Eastridge. I just want to quickly say how proud I am of my students for all the work we've done in this project. You guys have brought such deep consideration of really challenging ideas every day to class. You bring unique perspectives to this work, and I couldn't be more thankful. Every day, it has been just such a joy figuring out this history right there alongside you, so thank you for that. With that being said, I want to call up a student here today who not only brought that energy every day, but she really found a personal passion for this type of historical work. So, I'd like to call up Miss Supriti Saravana.
Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, nor where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, or degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe," said Frederick Douglass, a well-known abolitionist and a freed black man. In simpler terms, what Douglass was saying was that slavery takes away humanity from a human. It takes away what it is to be a person away from someone. Slavery is the practice of one person taking complete control over another. In this unit, we studied chattel slavery, experienced by African people who were enslaved in the Americas. In chattel slavery, one's human rights are taken away from them, and they are treated as property, to be enslaved forever. Slavery, which existed in New England region, was distinct from slavery as it was in the southern region. In the South, the land was more suitable for hosting big farms. Therefore, many plantation owners profited from enslaved labor in the production of cash crops. There were typically numerous enslaved people on a single plantation. On the contrary, the average home in New England had 1 to 2 enslaved people. Slavery in New England typically utilized enslaved people for domestic labor, like taking care of the owner's children or working within the household. Living within this context, the person I would like to speak to you about today was named Anne. She was an enslaved person who inhabited the David Scott house. David Scott was an immigrant from Ireland who purchased 10 acres of land along Main Street in Colonial Ridgefield. We have enough evidence to prove that there were 4 other enslaved people living here at one point in time. The names of them are Quash, Dina, Lydia, and Peter. From what we know, Anne may have been born between the time range of 1746 to 1752. Her enslaver, David Scott, died when she was likely in the age range of 8 to 14 years old. Today, I would like to discuss how Anne was dehumanized and treated as property rather than a person. Our only source from the time which Anne is mentioned in is a documented inventory list from which David Scott died, where she is listed at a price of £37 and 10 shillings. For a human to be placed on a list among estates and property takes away the human aspect of a person, putting them at the same level as a dwelling space. This shows the disrespect held towards enslaved people at the time. Anne was treated as if she was a replaceable good, listed with a price tag. Imagine that. Unfortunately, in that day and age, this unethical behavior would be typical. Nevertheless, from Anne's pricing at £37, we can infer that she must have been a strong, loyal, and skilled worker, as she is valued at an extremely higher price compared to other girls at that time. Since she's mentioned in only one document, there are many potential ways her life could have played out, even after the death of David Scott. The one I believe in the most is that she may have been passed down to one of David Scott's sons. Regardless of the uncertainty of Anne's future, as her life progressed, the United States was born beside her. As the United States became a nation in the late 18th century, and the Constitution was later written, the ideas of freedom were spreading like a raging fire. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This quote was written by Thomas Jefferson within the Declaration of Independence. However, not all men were treated equally. Not all men experience human rights. I would like to end with a quote I read a few days ago. Out of a Mountain of Despair, a Stone of Hope, by Martin Luther King Jr. Anne may have had to live an entire life of slavery. She may have never gotten to be free. But out of the darkness, there's always a light. Maybe Anne did find her light. Maybe she did manage to free herself. Maybe she did have a family, friends, a place to call home. Maybe she did find that stone of hope in that growing mountain. It's possible, for there are no straightforward answers. So I'm asking you to find your own stone of hope. As we grow, our lives will get tougher, We will have to face more challenge that life throws at us, but having that stone of hope can help conquer them. Right now, we all have one problem or another in our lives, but I know we will bounce back. Time and time again, humanity shows resilience, perseverance, and hope, just like Anne. We will hold our ground, because we are resilient, perseverant, and we have hope. Thank you.
Hello. I'm another 8th grade teacher at East Ridge Middle School. And shout out to everyone back at ERMS in the auditorium. Great work, like Ms. Santorelli said, Mr. Gasian, great work by all of our students at ERMS, truly becoming historians. And that's really the most rewarding part of Witness Stones as a teacher and as an educator. It's been thrilling to be along this historical research and journey with my students. And it's ungoogleable. I mean, that's the best stuff, right? Like this truly, I mean, our students are tasked and asked to look at documents that are 200-300 years old that really no one else in our community has analyzed, and from that to make some inferences, conclusions, and speculate what may have happened so we can honor Anne's story. So it's my pleasure to introduce two students to represent Team Vincent. Holland Meyer and Eliza Holmes. Come on down.
If the cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail. Because the goal of America is freedom, abused and scorned through we may be, our destiny is tied with America's destiny. Martin Luther King Jr. Did you know chattel slavery, chattel meaning personal possession, slavery meaning when one human controls another, started in the Americas in 1619, where colonizers from Europe enslaved human beings from their homes for their own desires. People were stripped of their human rights and treated like inanimate objects or property, being sold and treated as lesser than.
Some surprising facts about chattel slavery in the United States are that 18%, or 694,280 human beings living in the U.S. were held against their wills, forced to work in harsh conditions with no pay.
The Middle Passage was a long and gruesome journey, where innocent people were enslaved against their wills and taken to the Americas for unpaid and hard labor. We learned this while studying slavery in Connecticut. Some key facts that we found were enslavers would march the newly enslaved people in chains to the coast of West Africa, where they would lock them in holding pens. Then, slave traders forced the enslaved people onto the ships.
There, they kept them in very dirty and very often deadly conditions, and then would ship them across the Atlantic Ocean. About 10 to 15% of the enslaved people died on the voyage from disease and sadly from suicide before getting to the Americas.
0.5% of enslaved people were in the Northeast. In Connecticut alone, there were around 50 to 120 plantations. Each plantation held 20 to 30 enslaved people, many of these people being children. 26% of enslaved people were children under the age of 13, meaning that they were our age. The enslaved people lived in shacks on distant parts of the property, working in large groups, always under observation at all times.
Anne, an enslaved girl in Connecticut, endured the brutal realities of the treatment of slavery, which was particularly harsh. Enslaved individuals, especially children, like Anne, were subjected to a range of dehumanizing treatments, such as forced labor. Anne's life while being enslaved was marked by profound hardships physically as she navigated a system that sought to strip her of her dignity and identity. In 1756, Montreal's population included 46 African Americans, most of whom we reasonably can assume were enslaved. This reflects that established nature of slavery in the town's economy, where people of African descent were not viewed as individuals, but as property. The town's records show that enslaved people were often treated as no differently than real estate, bought and sold without regard for their humanity. For example, in 1740, David Scott sold a woman named Dinah and a young boy named Peter to Vivius Delchi for £200, transaction that highlights how enslaved people were manipulated as a source of labor, bought and sold purely for economic gain. Then, in 1760, when David Scott passed away, an inventory of his estate listed an enslaved girl named Anne for £37 and 10 shillings, or $18,750 in today's money, being the highest value of any item in his possession. This severely reveals how, after Scott's death, Anne was not freed, but treated as property to be passed down, just like a piece of land or livestock. Anne's inclusion in the inventory highlights both the brutal economics of slavery and enduring paternalism that continued her subjugation. Despite this, Anne's mere survival within such a system that can be seen as a form of resistance. Though she was likely subjected to intense mistreatment, her ability to endure and continue existing in a world designed to strip her of her humanity and is a testament to her resilience and strength. Anne's story, like so many others, underscores how enslaved people resisted even in the face of overwhelming odds, asserting their humanity through survival and defiance. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kira Kowalczyk, and this is Tom Broderick, and we are from Scotts Ridge. And we have had the honor and the privilege to take the journey with all of our students to give humanity and restored and enslaved individuals history through the Witness Stones Project. And today we have the pleasure of introducing two of our scholars from Scotts Ridge who truly felt the enormity of the task that was laid before them.
Stella and Anna really worked together, and I'll go off script for a second to say when I came back to my desk, they'd already pushed their Chromebooks together and were going off on their project. So it's been a pleasure to work with them. They're quiet, diligent, conscientious, and it's really an honor to introduce them today and to hear their words.
In 1712, there were an estimated 1,200 to 2,000 enslaved individuals in New England, and by 1760, this number increased to between 3,000 and 5,000. In today's population terms, that would equate to over 300,000 individuals enslaved in the region. These individuals were forced to do manual labor without payment and with very little support or resources. Nowhere was this truer than in Connecticut, and even more so when we look at the town of Ridgefield.
And here we are now at the David Scott house, where some of these enslaved lived. David Scott owned 5 enslaved people: Dinah, Peter, Quash, Lydia, and Anne. When he died, a document called a probate inventory was created. It listed the different items he owned and the value of the item. This included one of the only enslaved persons he owned at the time of his death, Anne,
whose story we are remembering today. While Anne's story is a complete mystery to the people of our generation, we can make assumptions about her life based on David Scott's life and the other enslaved people in this house.
Anne was believed to have been owned by David Scott when she was only 10 years old. Now, I want you to imagine being an enslaved 10-year-old girl or boy who was seen not as human but as property. Someone who's dehumanized their whole life. When you think about it, it's really sad, right? Well, this is what life was like for Anne.
In Anne's time, and in New England, most enslaved individuals, usually women, worked as servants or caretakers to the family. Men worked out as agricultural laborers or mastered skilled trades, doing hard work. Because of how young she was, Anne probably worked as a maid to David Scott, cleaning his house, and possibly cooking meals alongside Dinah, who could have worked as a chef or maid, as well as being the mother to Peter, Lydia, and Anne.
Quash, who was another enslaved man owned by David Scott, was believed to be the father of Peter, Lydia, and Anne. Although this may be true, there is no way to confirm this theory.
Their supposed family was later broken apart. This was due to David Scott selling his property to Viva Staucci, who later was given ownership of Dinah and Peter, breaking apart Anne's unusually strung-together family.
Not long after, Lydia was given as a gift to Mary and Gamaliel Northrop, who was said to be related to David Scott as his son-in-law, though there is no record of this marriage. If he was keeping Dinah and Peter together, why did he sell Lydia separately? These unanswered questions illustrate how our past provides mysteries we may never have answers for.
The only man owned by David Scott was Quash, who was given freedom after David Scott's death. He lived 20 great years of freedom before sadly passing and being found on the side of the road. We know Quash was set free when David Scott died in 1760, although Anne was kept until his death. Anne's story is a narrative woven together from fragments of others. These unanswered pasts emphasize the importance of valuing the voices we have lost to time.
We do not know what happened to Anne or where she may have ended up. However, we do know that she lived through dehumanization. She lived through being seen as an item, as property, not as a human being. She did not live the life she deserved to live, but by trying to gather information to tell her story, we are helping to restore and honor her humanity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A common theme has been about how a patchwork of history, putting a story together, is more and more challenging as time goes on. And today, being able to see the 4 stones that are here before us, it is time to unveil Anne's stone, and then we will have a musical interlude. Can I please have Stella Riley and Holland Meyer come on up? I invite you to take the blanket off and you can put the flowers next to her stone. We will now have an interlude, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, a traditional spiritual, directed by Dr. Kimberly Russell and our small vocal group, Casey Coughlin, Kelly Fitzpatrick, Gabriella Mamoli, Isabella Morel, Supriti Sarvana, and Charlie Tinan.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home. And tell all my friends I am coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Sometimes up and sometimes down, coming for to carry me home. But still my soul feels heavenly bound, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
In our closing remarks for today, I will also invite our string quartet to find their seats so that way they are ready to go in just a minute. I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming today, for our Eastridge students watching live. Tomorrow, Scotridge students will be watching in their classrooms, and for our larger community here in Ridgefield. We are able to do this work together because of the commitment that we have to these partnerships and bringing history alive to our students. In a time that sometimes we can't find all of the answers, these skill sets of practicing research and not having all of the answers, but still being able to have informed conclusions is the reason why we do this work as a whole community. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. And we will be closing out our installation ceremony with a song called Deep River, an African American spiritual, directed by Mr. Shane Peters and performed by Maxim Kurt, Supriti Saravana, Bianca Lopez, and Emmett Boyer.